Tonight on KGW News, a military salute, decades in the making.
It is the last thing I will ever be able to do for him.
One mother's fight to restore honor for her son after the Navy kicked him out decades ago, simply for being gay. Plus, prepared to strike when hundreds of local nurses plan to walk off the job. Then later, the stars align to save an 80-year-old hiker.
If no one saw him, it might have been a pretty miserable night out on the trail.
How this group with the motto, "Be Prepared," quickly came to his rescue. Thanks for joining us on this Friday. I'm David Molko. We begin with a mother coming through on a promise to her dying son who was kicked out of the Navy for being gay. He is one of many service members who were stripped of more than just their pride, but also benefits and opportunities. Alma McCarty has a look at the struggle to restore some of what was lost.
Willamette National Cemetery, the final resting place for thousands of veterans. The last of more than a dozen services held Friday, one to honor the life, memory, and military service of Martin Cerezo.
He was a beautiful baby and a good baby. Smart, very smart. But he'd get in trouble at school, and in retrospect, I look back and I wonder if he was struggling with his sexuality.
Not long after high school, Martin came out to his mother, Cheryl.
He just blurted it out and he said, "Mom, I'm gay." And my world kind of stopped in that moment. I didn't know what to do except hug him and cry with him and tell him I loved him.
Though it didn't happen right away, she fully embraced him as he was.
He hasn't changed. I just have learned something. That's all.
In 1989, Cheryl says her oldest son expressed an interest in joining the U.S. Navy, but she admits she was worried for him.
It was very scary to me. And I told him that, and he said, "Mom, it'll be fine. I'll be fine. Nothing will happen."
And for a while, he was fine, more than fine, in fact, exceeding expectations as a sailor.
He was recommended for retention. He was recommended for promotion.
Cheryl says there's no doubt in her mind that he loved it. Martin was assigned to the USS Constellation, an aircraft carrier, making a months-long trip from San Diego to Philadelphia. But dreams of a promising career would come crashing down.
Shortly after he had turned 20, he called me, and he was crying. And someone had outed him as gay.
Martin was ordered to name names to out other men on board. Then he and several others were given an other than honorable discharge.
He really felt it when they stripped his stripes off of his uniform, when they escorted him to the gate, when they took away his ID card. He felt other than honorable. The Navy not only didn't go easy on him, they couldn't have gone much worse.
Though Martin lived a full life, Cheryl says this moment followed him.
He was running from something or looking for something.
He couldn't get certain jobs, nor could he get military benefits. And the times he tried to start the paperwork to get his discharge upgraded, the painful trauma returned.
He was 20 years old and being kicked out of the Navy again.
Then came liver problems, then worsening liver cancer. In 2020, doctors gave Martin and his mother the prognosis. He had only months to live. Before he died, Cheryl promised him his discharge status would be upgraded, that he'd be buried with full military honors.
I held his hand and I told him, and he squeezed my hand. On January 2nd of 2021, he died with his brothers and me by his bed.
More than 2 years later, and after so many obstacles.
It hasn't been easy. I've cried a lot of tears.
Cheryl secured not only the honorable discharge for her son, but also the honor of being buried here at Willamette National Cemetery.
And I know that I have done what I promised him I would do as he lay dying. He was a good man, an honorable man.
Cheryl tells me she believes her son's health outcomes could have been much different had he received care from the VA. She also tells me her fight continues to help the many more, over 100,000 discharged for being who they are, get their full benefits and full honors for their service in the United States military. David?
You know, something they all deserve, and we salute Martin and his mother for standing up. Thank you, Alma, for that touching story. This just into our newsroom now. A standoff has ended in Southeast Portland. This is video of the scene we're going to show you on Steel Street near 136th Avenue in the Powellhurst neighborhood. At about 7 tonight, Portland police say they were pursuing some suspects who eventually ran from their car. Police say they went inside a house in this area, and after about 2 hours, police were able to get them out and take them into custody. A neighbor shelled some doorbell video showing one of them surrender. We're still working to find out why police were pursuing them in the first place. Let's get you caught up on tonight's other headlines now, starting in Astoria, where a pier has been closed indefinitely after a fire late last night caused significant structural damage. Pier 39 is home to businesses that include a pub, and the pier's owner tells the Astorian that based on surveillance video, he believes someone may have sparked the fire while smoking. Police say they found that person, but there's no word if they'll face charges. No one was hurt. After announcing the Mount Hood Medical Birth Center would reopen next week, Legacy has pushed the date back. That is because it says it didn't get the proper approval from state authorities. You might remember Legacy closed the center in Gresham back in March without state approval. At the time, it blamed low staffing and use of the center. There's no exact reopening date, but Legacy says it expects it'll take at least another week. And roughly 1,800 nurses have warned Providence they plan to strike for 5 days starting June 19th. They're from Providence, Portland, Providence Seaside, and Providence Home Health and Hospice. They say they're concerned about eroding patient care, unsafe staffing levels, and inadequate wages and benefit packages. Providence says some services will be limited or halted during the strike, though critical care will continue. It adds it will not return to negotiations until that 5-day strike is over. Well, tonight, newly released body cam video from police gives us a new perspective on a deadly shooting outside of Vancouver Safeway. More than a dozen shots were fired last week on Mill Plain and Andreessen. We want to warn you, the video is graphic. With all the increased attention on police using deadly force, we also think it's important to show you a portion of this video since it helps shed light on exactly what happened. Now, officers say at the time they were trying to arrest 43-year-old Joshua Wilson, wanted on armed robbery charges. Authorities say they spotted his car and then followed him to the Safeway. When Wilson came out of the supermarket, that is when officers confronted him. You're going to see the body cam video. We'll switch over. You see an officer get out of his car and run toward Wilson with his gun drawn. When Wilson, the suspect, points a gun at that officer, the officer then fires multiple shots. It is unclear if Wilson ever fired. Now, in this edited clip, you're going to hear the sound of gunshots. There are a lot of them, fired by 3 officers and 1 deputy in all, but we are not going to show you the shooting itself. Take a look.
Drop the gun! Drop the gun!
All right, the video also shows officers trying to treat Wilson when he's on the ground. He did not survive. This is the first deadly police shooting since Vancouver officers started wearing body cameras. All officers who fired their guns are still on leave, which is standard procedure in a case like this. Let's talk wildfires as they continue to rage in Quebec and the air clears a little bit more on the eastern seaboard. Firefighters from across Oregon are training up for wildfire season so that when they get the call, they can hit the ground running. It is tough work because the stakes are so high when you're learning the best ways to protect property and to save lives. Our John Goodwin went to check it out.
It's one thing to talk about fire. It's a whole different thing when you're faced with it.
Copy, line drop.
This is all about containment of the fire.
Summer's basically here. Unfortunately, that means wildfire season is too.
If anything, the last 10 years, has taught us. We used to be deployed on 4 and 7 day conflagrations before. Now they're 14 and 28 days.
That's why firefighters from across the Willamette Valley and Portland metro area are meeting in Molalla.
I'm about your 12 o'clock. I want you to come in from the south.
To prepare at the 12th annual Metro Advanced Wildland School. Firefighters hone their skills by practicing different techniques on the ground in controlled situations.
Out in the wildland, out in a forest, We don't have ready water sources there. Out there, it's you and your shovel and your axe, and be able to basically cut a line to stop the forward progress of the fire while it's sitting on the ground.
Rich Salsa is the Philomath Deputy Fire Chief. He's here with over 125 firefighters from 25 agencies. This training provides a chance to see how fire behaves and how to put it out.
So I think the challenge is always just not knowing necessarily when things are going to happen, just knowing that when it does, it generally happens in a very big way.
It allows us to really get some hands-on training that we wouldn't get during the rest of the year for a lot of wildland urban interface, conflagration deployments, even things that we'll be doing in our own districts and beyond.
Kaiser Fire District Captain Rachel Brozovich is ready for another busy fire season. Getting these teams together now can make a big difference when it's the real thing. This training helps gain experience and complete certifications needed to respond to fires across the region.
So we really rely on our neighbors throughout the whole year. And it's important for us to get those interactions, again, in these lower stress situations before we go out on emergencies with our neighbors. We're always using our feedback and what happened in the last season to improve our practices and really develop those best, performance measures that we can take to do our best in the next season.
Thanks for your help. Report back to the Vision Office.
In Malala, John Goodwin, KGW News.
The theater department of Portland's Lincoln High says it is missing $11,000. That is money a ticketing company collected in the fall and never gave back. We have previously reported how Brown Paper Tickets, that's the company's name, has withheld ticket sales from local arts organizations that included a ballet academy in Beaverton and a choir in Portland. Now the theater director at Lincoln says she was frustrated to find out her program wasn't the only one having problems.
I mean, we're not Broadway here. We don't have $1 million backers. We are trying to save every penny, and we all work so hard. And so when you don't have any money to count on, it basically just completely straps you in what you can do moving forward. And it leaves you with very, very few options.
In the past, when KGW reached out about outstanding money from ticket sales, the company was fairly quick to pay up. So in this case, we again reached out to Brown Paper Tickets, though as of now, have not heard back. We'll keep you posted. Well, if you listen really carefully tonight, you could probably still hear them cheering in Eugene. We are talking history because the Oregon Ducks pulled off an epic comeback to win Game 1 of their Super Regional with Oral Roberts. We do not use that word loosely. Third inning, the game was essentially over. Oregon pitching gave up 8 runs. It looked like the visiting Gold Eagles would run away with it tonight. But then the Oregon Bats came alive. They crawled all the way back, tying the game, and in the bottom of the 9th, Drew Cowley makes history.
He's nasty. Line drive, base hit right field. Here comes Riku Nishida. Throw to the plate. Offline, Oregon has won.
And that was history. Oregon stages the largest comeback ever in a Super Regional game. They win it 9-8. And take a 1-0 lead in the best-of-3 series. A win tomorrow night or on Sunday sends the Ducks to the College World Series. Way to go.